War II, from before we were all born in front of our eyes, is designed to make us forget that there are atrocities and crimes against humanity taking place right now today that we should be getting involved in and trying to stop. Instead of trying to atone for something that, as I said before, we had nothing to do with it. Our country was the country that stopped Hitler from doing what he did. And I'd like to see a little gratitude if, in fact, the official story is correct. Instead of the American taxpayers giving Israel 4 times the entire cost of the Apollo moon program, for which we have yet to have a giant leap for mankind, I might add, shouldn't Israel have been making financial reparations to all the families of the soldiers, American soldiers who died in World War II stopping Hitler? Wouldn't that be the decent, kind, and grateful thing to do? When the war was all over, say, thank you for saving us, thank you for pulling our rear end out of the fire there, we won't bother you anymore. Instead of this, okay, you didn't get here soon enough, you got to pay us more money, you got to help us steal Palestine, you got to give us bombs and stuff. How much sharper than a serpent's tooth to have a thankless child. We need to live in the present. I know Israel wants to go on living like they're an Old Testament kingdom. That really doesn't work in a nuclear age. We, as moral citizens of the world, we need to look at the evils that are being committed now, today, 2012, not 1942. We need to look at those evils and we need to say, yeah, these things are evil, like lying about weapons of mass destruction to invade Iraq, like lying about weapons of mass destruction to invade Iran. And we need to say, we have to stop these atrocities now. Or 50 years from now, the citizens of planet Earth will look upon America with the same revulsion that we look upon the Nazis. Because we're behaving just like them. We have a persecuted, targeted religious minority, Muslims in this case. We have a persecuted, targeted religious minority, Muslims in this case. We have concentration camps. Our government's using torture. They have informants spying on everybody. Everywhere you go, your papers, please. You've got to have your papers. We're going to have full naked scans to see the Super Bowl. Jawohl, Sieg Heil, and all the rest of that stuff. We're there. We're the new Nazi power. And we got to stop being distracted with things that happened from before we were born, and we've got to pay attention to what is happening right in front of our eyes. There's a lot of evil in the world. And we've got to deal with that evil. We can't go off and watch a movie about Hitler and think that, well, that's the end of our sense of humanity. That sense of cultivated and encouraged outrage over things that happened before we were born. That isn't how you make a better world. You make a better world by looking at the world today and saying there are some things that need to get changed. Now, apparently Rick Santorum is out there saying that Iran would nuke Missouri. I don't know why Iran would care about Missouri. Missouri hasn't done anything to Iran yet. But this is the kind of propaganda we're getting from our political candidates, except for Ron Paul. And it's the kind of stuff we're getting from the corporate media. So Rick Santorum, or anybody who works for him who is happening to be listening to this broadcast, I have a message for you. For all that propaganda you are waving around about Iran, along with Zbigniew Brzezinski and CNN and Fox and the rest of it, for all these warnings about what Iran might do somewhere down the road, let us keep in mind that one and only one nation has ever actually used nuclear weapons of mass destruction against the civilians of another country. And that nation is the United States of America. The only nuclear threat to the rest of the world, you're standing on it, because the United States is the only country whose government was crazy enough to actually do it. And they did it to prove to the rest of the world that they were crazy enough to do it, because Japan was trying to surrender. And they wanted to prove that they could get this Big Bang to happen and do it twice. It wasn't just a fluke. Please don't be fooled by any of this stuff. We're on the verge here. We've already been the country that used nuclear weapons against civilians of another country. Let us not repeat that error. For all we know, they've already used nuclear weapons. The bunker busters, some of those are nuclear, the ones that are supposed to really go down deep. We know that during George W. Bush's term in office, they started building a new generation of tactical nuclear weapons. I don't think they did it to put them out on the mall and say, ooh, doesn't that look shiny? So this thing from Santorum that Iran is going to nuke Missouri. Man, if you believe that one, I got some of Saddam's nuclear weapons to sell you. Now, today at the United Nations Security Council, Russia blocked the resolution on Syria because Russia understands that the U.S. is playing the same game over and over and over again. Put in a bunch of agent provocateurs, cause a lot of trouble, say, oh my goodness, the government is oppressing their people, and go in and take over the place, install a puppet government, install a private central bank to enslave the people permanently to debt, and move on to the next one. And Russia is drawing a line in the sand and saying no more. You're going to have to be happy with the nations that you've already conquered. We're not going to let you do any more. Because Russia understands that if the U.S. conquers the entire Middle East, the price for oil and gas for Russia is going to be extraordinarily high. Their strategic national interests are now at threat from U.S. and Israeli imperialism. And Russia really does have nuclear weapons. There's a good reason to why to call this thing off right now here.